I want to get this sprocket carrier ready for the sandblaster, but this kind of leads into a wheel bearing change out. I need to get this spacer out of here. That spacer. Here's a bunch of factory grease. It's almost like a Vaseline type grease. Next, let's see if the seal will pop out of here. That leaves us with a wheel bearing to remove. I've got this thing jacked up on a couple of 2x4 type things here. That's not going to work. How about adding a little spacer? One socket and one factory Yamaha wheel bearing and one empty hub. You might remember a long time ago I made a video cleaning and polishing and painting, maybe videos, I don't remember, these nice RZ350 wheels. There's the hub that goes in the rear. It's time to replace the bearings. Clearly I took that one out. It's sitting right over there. Hopefully I made a video on that so I can attach it to this video. So for this little project, replacing the wheel bearings, we have this set of bearings for the rear, this for the front. I'll put links in the description to purchase these things from Amazon. For the rear, you have two bearings and a seal that go in the wheel. That larger bearing and that seal will go in that hub. For the front, you have two wheel bearings and two seals. Please take heed of the California Proposition 65 warning. These bearings will give you cancer and do reproductive harm if you use them in California, which I am. But I don't have to worry about it. I've been fixed. Plus I'm about 100 years old. I'm going to attempt to get it started using this method. Seems to be working. Now, using my 50-ton press, I'm going to try to squish that thing in a little bit. This is the biggest socket that I have. It's 36 millimeter. It does fit on there pretty well. Be nice to have something a little bit bigger. I'm going to have to keep it centered on there. Then stack a couple more sockets on there. Gonna stay. It's coming off the socket, but the bearing is pressing in. Coming off of this socket. I think that's it. I can measure it now with the caliper. Give it a visual. Oh, that's in there. That worked. Will the same method work for putting the seal in? Yeah, that went right in there. Nice. Doing the math over here, I should have ended up with about 3 millimeters of space here. How about that? 3.04. I went and got a spare hub, sprocket carrier, just to make sure it would look about the same, and it looks about the same. And don't forget this little doohickey spacer thing. I'll have have to give that a little persuasion. That is not going in there. I'm going to push it back out. I'm back to using the 50-ton press. I'm putting this socket on the internal part of that bearing in there. Flip this guy over. So I'm pushing down on the socket, the collar spacer thing. Now, back to the press. There it goes. And that's better. I think that's a better solution than whacking it with a hammer. So this part is done. Ready for service? Well, not really, huh? I think it needs a part added. These are lock nuts, but just for fun, I'm going to use some green wicking Loctite. Not that much. I think I can say this part is done now. The bearing spins. That's a very good sign. Next up is the rear wheel. Let's get this seal out. I'm really glad I'm changing out these bearings. You can see there's a bunch of rust in here. The bearing still feels pretty good and probably would have worked for another 10,000 miles, but it's a good idea to change these bearings out. And yes, I should have done this before I refinished the wheels, but I didn't. I'm finding that for some reason it's best to go this direction with my punch to catch that bearing on the inside there. Going this way, it doesn't seem to be catching on that other bearing very well. I measured this distance from this surface to the bearing. It's at 3 millimeters, so I can tell if I'm making progress or not. I'm pretty sure it came out this way. This piece on this collar was on the, what is this, the rotor side, and this side was up against this bearing on the sprocket side. Looks like that, with this bearing pulled out on the sprocket side, and this one will be quite easy to get out of there, won't it? That thing is coming out. It's nearly flush on the other side, but I'm going to switch to this method and see if it makes things a little better. Yes. There's the bearing. There's the head. The bearings that came out are identical. They both have stamped on them 6302Z. I've cleaned the inside surface of both sides where the bearings go in. After knocking the bearings out, I noticed several spots in here where the surface is elevated. I don't know how that happens doing what I did, but I can feel that they're elevated. It's a teeny tiny bit. So I'm going to knock those down with this. I switched to this flat tip. That worked quite well. It just took a second. There was very little material that needed to be removed. But now there's a nice flat surface for that bearing to settle down onto. To press these bearings in, this is the best socket that I have, and I don't know if I like it. This is the old bearing, but the new bearing is identical. I want something a teeny bit bigger so it pushes on more of this outer OD of that bearing. So I'm going to see if I can machine this washer down on my belt sander. Might take a while, but I'm going to go do it. I'll try to show you how I machined this washer down with my belt sander in my machine shop here. Like that. Need to deburr the edges now. That's my pressing tool. Here's the stack of stuff for this side, which is empty right now. I did use the freezer method on these bearings. I've never done that before. You can see a little bit of frost on here maybe. If I can just get it started. The bearing is started. This is the washer I just machined, and I'm going to try to press it in. Nice. Now for the other side. Don't forget this. It would be unfortunate to smash or press this bearing in and forget that spacer inside there. This guy's got its frosty surface. I should get it started. The machined washer. Right now that bearing is very crooked. Let's see if it straightens out. Yep. I had to go get a socket. I just ticked my gold paint right here with this tool. Not paying close enough attention. And the seal goes on the rotor side. Okay, gotta put a rotor on. Blue Loctite for these screws. One last thing for this wheel, the valve stem needs to go in. I can't find the valve stems I pulled out of these wheels. I took some out of a set of spare wheels that I have. There's a bend in this one, so I'm going to see if I can straighten it out. I think I straightened it out. I put 4 nuts on there, put it in the vise, and whacked it with the soft blow. It's fairly straight. I think I'm good to go. How about that? Looks like we have one rear wheel done with new bearings.